From the mind of Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov.
So I have a story to tell, and I'm going to do it on the butter stick and a little bit of mood lighting. So I'm not afraid to admit that I'm a little bit insecure when it comes to my work. I always have been. I think that being a creative, that's just part of the territory. But I had one experience many years ago which showed me that I wasn't alone. Where do I begin? All right, so a couple of days ago, I'm watching the Amazon Prime series Hunters with Al Pacino. And somewhere in the second season, there is a moment in like episode 3 or 4 where a bad dude, he enters this swimming pool area at night. He's at an estate, and this estate is supposed to be in Buenos Aires. And so he opens this gate into the pool area, and he steps out and we see the pool. And the pool is lit up at night, and there's a woman waiting for him. And surrounding this pool is all this statuary, all these like Greek statues. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I know exactly where they shot this, which is something that happens. If you live in LA long enough, you will recognize things that you see on TV and in film. You're like, I know where that is. I know where that is. So one of the few benefits of living here is the little bit of amusement you get when you recognize something. So I'm like, I know exactly where that is. And I'm thinking that night, when I saw this pool with my own eyes, kind of changed everything for me in a certain way. So let me explain. Many, many, many years ago, this is really before the turn of the millennium, or about maybe 2001, I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 2 years, so I was feeling a little down. And my roommate at the time, Andrew Tubman, is a good guy. And, you know, everybody, well, he grew up with some friends of mine, and everybody called him Tubby. And that's how I knew him. I mean, he's not a portly guy at all, but, you know, everybody just called him Tubby. So Tubby, being a good pal, he saw that I was bummed out, and he's like, hey, I'm going to this party on Saturday night. Come with me. And I'm like, okay, sounds great. So it was a party up in the Hollywood Hills. And right away, I knew this wasn't going to be your regular Hollywood Hills party, because we had to arrive at a parking lot down in Hollywood proper, like really kind of a couple of blocks off Hollywood and Highland, really kind of in the gritty area of Hollywood. And we meet at this parking lot, and I'm thinking, where's the party? Where's the party, right? You said the party was up in the hills. So we're on this list as really the +1 and +2 of these other 2 girls that Tubby knew that invited him, and he was like, hey, can I bring my roommate? And they're like, yeah, sure. So we get to this parking lot, and there's a guy with a clipboard, and he's checking you in if you're on the guest list so that you can take a shuttle van from this parking lot in Hollywood on like a 10-minute drive up the winding Hollywood Hills back roads to this big mansion. And so I was like, okay, you know, this is an adventure. So we go get in the van, drive up the hill with all these other people, nobody who I knew. And we get to this house, and I'm like, I've seen this house before. And I was able to actually, when we're standing there, somebody's like, oh yeah, this is the house where they shot the Italian Job. So there's like the remake of the Italian Job and like a bunch of other movies. So this is a house that I believe somebody lived in, but gets rented out quite a bit for productions. It's a beautiful house. And so I go to this party, and there are like 100, 200 people at this party. It's a massive party. And there's all kinds of people, right? And there's different rooms of the house. There's like there's music, trance music going on in this part of the house, and there's like a band playing in like this other part that looked like a greenhouse kind of attached to the back, like a sunroom actually. And so, I mean, it's a really crazy cool party. And so I'm walking through this party, and I mean, in the living room, right? Heidi Fleiss, the Hollywood madam, and this was after she had been arrested and had come out of jail, and it was recently after that. She was sitting in the living room on a couch, like imagine a giant living room, a big like C, shaped couch and other chairs, and she was like holding court there. And I don't know what she was saying. I didn't stick around, but there was like everybody hanging on every word. So she must have been talking about her, experience or whatever. So, and that's kind of the thing that happens sometimes. You go to these parties and you'll see somebody who is well known and they're like kind of holding court in a corner there. A lot of people are like really just listening with their rapt attention, like, soaking it all in. It's just kind of part of what happens. And so Heidi Fleiss is there and this and that. And at some point I lose Tubby. He's gone off and he might have gone upstairs with his girl. I have no idea. And so I walk out onto the balcony off of what may have been the living room or the dining room. And I'm standing there, and the backyard, which is like just gorgeous estate backyard, is lit up. But right below me, below this patio, is this swimming pool with this gate, right? And this kind of wall around it, and all this statuary. And I'm like, I've seen this in movies before. I know I've seen this. And I'm looking at it, and it's just like at night, and there's nobody swimming in the pool or anything like that, but there are people hanging out, drinking back there, and I'm like looking at this, I'm like, wow, this is so beautiful. It's such a cool house. And I'm just kind of, I'm not in the best mood. I'm having a better time than I would be if I just stayed home being depressed. And I got a beer in my hand, and I noticed that there's somebody standing right next to me. Within like a couple of feet of me. And I look over, and it's Oliver Stone. Oliver Stone is standing right here next to me. And he's just kind of minding his own business. He's not talking to anybody. Nobody's bothering him or anything. And so I'm just like, how's it going? And Oliver Stone starts talking to me. And the fact that he just enabled me to have this conversation by just responding to me and just talking. And I'm like, I had this one opportunity to tell him one thing that I really wanted to tell him. And that was like, I have to tell you that Any Given Sunday, his football movie with Al Pacino, I said, Any Given Sunday is my favorite sports movie of all time. I love Any Given Sunday. I watch it every year before football season. I really love this movie. And he was like, really pleased by that. He was like, really? He's like, you really liked it? And I said, yeah. And I'm talking about the amazing locker room speech that Pacino makes, and, how Jamie Foxx really kind of filled the shoes of this character in such a way that I believed it, and I could feel like that his acting performance was great, and I was just like, I was raving about it, but not like going nuts about it, but, and we're talking about movies and stuff, and Oliver Stone says to me, and this is in my book, Where's My Effing Latte? That's a book full of stories told to me by other people, but this is my story. It's in that book. He says to me, I'm not really sure if any of my stuff is good anymore. And I'm like, what? Oliver Stone is confiding in me his insecurity about his work. He's like, I don't know if my work is any good anymore. And I'm like, dude, Any Given Sunday was amazing. I'm like, and I feel like he kind of like, I don't want to say he lit up, but he seemed to be happy with the fact that I was telling him that, like, no, you don't suck. You're really good. Oliver Stone. And so I'm just chatting with Oliver Stone, trying to reassure him that he's a great artist. And it was amazing. And then, like, his wife or his girlfriend, his companion for the evening, whoever he came with, shows up on the patio and, drags him away. And he's like, "Hey, nice talking to you." I'm like, "Wow, what just happened?" Right? And so I'm like, my mind is blown because I've had this whole conversation with Oliver Stone about movies. And, and I was like, well, even Oliver Stone, with all of his success, is telling me that he's insecure, a complete stranger, a sympathetic, total anonymous stranger who wasn't there to judge him or anything like that. And I did fanboy a little bit. So it wasn't like I was like, "Oh, I don't know who you are." It blows my mind to this day. And then, so I go and maybe a little bit later, I find Tubby, and I'd been talking to some other people, and I'm standing there, and I'm having a conversation in part of the house where I'm just standing in the foyer or somewhere, and there's like a back set of stairs. I think it was off the kitchen, so there's a back set of stairs, not like a nice set of stairs, but a back set of stairs, like servant stairs going up to the second floor. And people were coming up and down there because I think there was a bathroom up there or whatever. And so I'm standing there having a conversation, and I see Oliver Stone coming down the stairs with his girlfriend, right? And I have no idea what they were doing. It doesn't matter. And Oliver Stone's coming down the stairs, and he misses the last step. Like, he goes from the second to last step right to the floor and does like boom, like one of these, like kind of like very awkwardly and loudly, like his foot hits the floor and it's like bam, and everybody turns around, and he's just kind of like, and I think he had been impaired by alcohol. I don't know, right? So he looks like he had a couple of drinks since then, and he just almost face plants coming down these stairs in front of like, a dozen or so people who were just kind of hanging around the area. And he looked quite embarrassed, and he left. And I was like, well, any sort of good vibes I may have imparted, trying to reassure him that his work was great, probably just completely washed away by nearly face planting off the stairs in front of a room full of people. But yeah, and it's weird because it was like I'd seen this shot in Hunters, and I was like, that is absolutely the backyard of this mansion. And it just reminded me of that whole moment, and really, really about how, I guess it doesn't matter how successful you are. There's always going to be, for some of us, that deep insecurity. Like, am I really good? Am I doing this? Like, why am I doing this? Am I making a fool of myself by doing this? And the truth is that, you know what? You're just going to go through that, and you power through it, and you do your thing the way you want, the best you can, and you make stuff happen. And but you have to be yourself. You have to honestly be yourself. And so I just had to tell you this story because I've been thinking about it lately, and I've been feeling better about my own insecurity. Just the last few days, just because I was thinking about this again, and it really kind of how it impacted me, and how it made me realize that I'm not alone. All right, you've been listening to The Butterstick. Leave a comment. Until next time, this is Mark Yoshimoto Nemcoff, fading to black.